In this episode, we go through Ahrefs and Particl to learn about how to create a CPG business that uses data and trends. I brought on Ashwinn. Ashwinn works with some of the top brands to figure out how to create a product that people love. And what are some unfair advantages to create products that millions of people are going to use? We learn about SEO, we learn about trends, we learn about branding. And even if you're not building a CPG product, a lot of these lessons could be applied to your software startup. So I enjoyed myself in this episode. I think you're going to enjoy it too. And let me know.
The Startup Ideas Podcast. It's sipping time, baby.
We got Ashwinn on the pod. We don't often have people like Ashwinn on the pod. And what I mean by that is Ashwinn's my go-to brand and physical product guy. So, and not many people know this, but he uses a lot of tools and software to come up with ideas, opportunities, and ways to create unfair advantages with building any of the startups that he's built. And he's built a bunch of successful ones. Wanted to welcome you here. And I wanted to ask you if you could just give like a 1 or 2 liner about who you are, and if you can tell people what they're going to learn if they stick through this whole episode.
Yes. So thanks for having me on. So my kind of like in one sentence, what I do is I launch and grow consumer brands. And so I've, gone through this process of going from idea to launch and growing both in the consumer space and then prior in the software space. Right now, I do this through an agency that I have. That's a branding and design agency. We help launch a lot of kind of physical products. I have a couple brands of my own, and then I just make a lot of content around branding and marketing and distribution and how people, whether you're building software or whether you're building physical products, should think about this and kind of reverse engineer it, because now the cost to create things have become so easy, and it is much harder to acquire customers. I think today we're going to get into some of the ways that I evaluate opportunities, how to think about it if you are building something new, what some resources is, and how to like look at this data and consider opportunities so that you don't get to a place where you build something and then you're like, oh shit, how do I get customers for this thing now? Like, is there demand for my product?
I'll tell you why I wanted to have you on the pod selfishly.
Okay.
So Ashwinn is people have their friend who's just like always the best dressed, always the best well spoken, always knows like the most upcoming trends. We all have one of those friends. That's Ashwinn for me. So what I want to do is get inside your head and just see how, like when you say how I evaluate opportunities, and how we've been throwing around this word taste. Everyone's talking about taste, right? Taste is the ultimate moat. Distribution is the ultimate moat. I basically want to see unpack how you think about taste, and yeah, let's just do a lot of screen sharing today and see what we cook up.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so I'm gonna start in here because I was having a conversation with someone yesterday where they were talking about a product that they built, again in the kind of like physical product world, and they wanted to think about how they should invest their time from a digital marketing standpoint. Should they do Facebook marketing? Should they do SEO? Should they do Google email marketing? There's like so many channels, right? And I think especially for an early stage business, again, whether it's software, physical products, you're going to get most of your leverage from one channel. And so it's a question of like, which of these channels should I invest in first, and what's kind of worthwhile? But kind of taking a step back here for a second, are you familiar with Ahrefs?
I am, but self-admittedly, I haven't gone deep on it.
Okay. So I love Ahrefs, and the person who put me on to, so let me give context for what we're looking at here. Let's type in.
Like, to me, honestly, Ahrefs feels a bit overwhelming.
It is a little bit overwhelming, but it's one of those tools where there's a few key ideas for you to understand from here. And when you can understand those numbers, like forget this chart, right? What is this insane, like, graphic down here? I have no idea how to parse this. But there's like 2 key things that are helpful here. So Ahrefs is a tool where you can It is a tool really used by people who are in the SEO world. But what one of its really useful kind of features is you can type in any keyword and it will give you a general sense of what the search volume is on Google for that keyword or term or brand, as well as the difficulty in ranking for that term on Google. And so that's what we see up here, keyword difficulty in the left and then search volume in the top right. And why I bring this up is because this is a really good way. So first, it's a really good way of evaluating category demand and trends in certain spaces. So, for example, here, in the physical product world, electrolytes. I mean, you've probably seen Element and all of these brands get super popular. Element probably came out in 2016, I want to say, where there was like some demand there, but it wasn't explosive. But then over the years, there has just been like a rising trend and kind of demand in electrolytes. So there's kind of two things here. There's good search volume, but there's also this like seasonal trend around it, right? Where June and July, there seems to be this like huge pops for electrolytes. So just right off the bat there kind of like tells you two things. All right, if I'm launching an electrolyte brand, sure, there's probably going to be some seasonality here. But the second thing that you see here is that the keyword difficulty is ranked super hard, right? It's ranked 88. So this is a scale from 0 to 100. And what this tells you is if you wanted to go on Google and like really play the game of SEO and rank in the first 3 slots for electrolytes on the first page, it's going to be a near impossible endeavor for you. It is going to take an exorbitant amount of time, money, effort, and like SEO expertise for you to get up there, probably like a 24-month effort and like a ton of money. So you kind of just look at this and you're like, okay, even not knowing anything else about the brands that are out there, say I only know that Element exists or Liquid IV exists, this like categorically should just tell you there's a lot of competition in here. There's a lot of people vying for this keyword. So this is the kind of like first place that I look for something.
I will say one thing though,
yeah.
which is interesting. So when I look at the global search volume, US 45%, UK 19%, Canada 6%, Australia 4%. That's what is that? 74% is basically US, UK, Canada, Australia. What does that tell me? That this is really big in English speaking Western countries.
Mm-hmm.
But electrolytes seems to not be a thing in other places.
Mm-hmm.
So there's probably an opportunity to build like an element for Germany, for example.
100%.
Quick break in the pod to tell you a little bit about Startup Empire. So Startup Empire is my private membership where it's a bunch of people like me, like you, who want to build out their startup ideas. Now they're looking for content to help accelerate that. They're looking for potential co-founders. They're looking for tutorials from people like me to come in and tell them, how do you do email marketing? How do you build an audience? How do you go viral on Twitter? All these different things. That's exactly what Startup Empire is. And it's for people who want to start a startup but are looking for ideas, or it's for people who have a startup but just they're not seeing the traction that they need. So you can check out the link to startupempire.co in the description.
You have 3% India, Philippines. Go build like, if you're watching over there, it's like, okay, how do we build this in these countries? And there tends to be these these like patterns of diffusion of how long things take to spread to other cultures. And I remember there's this like famous like German tech startup that basically like raised a ton of money, and their whole kind of shtick is like, what are the big US tech companies? Okay, like Grubhub got super big there. Great, we're just going to do that in like Germany and EU more broadly. And I think it's smart because you've a proven business model, and you're like, okay, this is probably going to be big here in the next 5 years or so. So I think that's a good call out. But how else I kind of use this, or I'll kind of tell you why I became so interested in this is I have a a buddy. Let me type it in here. I have a buddy who is really good at SEO. And so he had a company that was like built off of SEO. He sold it. It was very successful. And then he was like, hey, I want to buy kind of undervalued web properties. And I'm going to see where there is existing demand for that like search term or that kind of asset. So he was looking in astrology for a while. He was looking in religion, and he would go to all of the. He'd say, okay, if they have a search volume of more than 1 million monthly visitors, I'm going to go find like the fourth and fifth result on Google, try to buy their website, and then know that I can pump them to number one. And it's basically like he's like the SEO like home renovation guy, where he'll like come in and get this like undervalued asset. So he saw there was a lot of opportunity in solitaire because you have 8.5 million monthly searches here. And if you were the first result on Google, especially for a highly targeted key term, you're probably going to get 40% of the clicks there, right? So he tried to buy like every solitaire site that was already up there. And no one wanted to sell because they were just like cash cows, right? They make all of this money just running Google AdSense. And so he's like, damn, I'm just going to like build my own from scratch and out SEO these guys. So he built his own from scratch and out SEO'd everyone for 24 months. He just like invested like a dog into it. And now he ranks like number 1 or 2, depending on what you search. And that business, I won't share the numbers, but like you probably know like some of the figures just like looking at this. He makes a preposterous amount doing that. So there's really good ways to use a tool like this for if you're thinking about an app idea. Say like, hey, I want to build tax for vets, or like software for vets, or like accounting software for vets. Like I would first use this tool because a lot of people start with an idea and they're like, oh, I think that'd be great. Like I know 4 vet clinics and they all say they have an issue with like their accounting software. I want to go build it. Then they build it and then they're like, oh, damn, was there demand for it or was it too crowded already? And so I love first just like gut checking with a tool like this. Hey, what does the search volume for this category look like? Can I organically capture some demand here? And then it also just shows you the competitors that are kind of in this space. So that's my Ahrefs kind of walkthrough and what I love here.
I think the mistake a lot of people make when they're playing with Ahrefs is they just look at the data and they don't ask why.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, they're not acting like analysts.
Yeah.
So, and this is like a future business idea. Like someone should go and create an agent that basically is that research agent that says, oh, I've noticed that there's an opportunity in Korea for CBD,
Yes. I mean, let's look at this, right? So we have CBD that was explosive in 2019 and then has kind of like declined steadily ever since. And you say, okay, well, why was it explosive in 2019? It was explosive in 2019 because the 2018 Farm Bill passed, and that basically allowed like the manufacture and sale of hemp-based products. So you have everyone in the industry kind of pumping it up and talking about it. Okay, so there was this like peak when people were super interested in it. There was this like secondary peak. Okay, I have to figure out what happened there, but it's been declining. And then why has it been declining? And if you look at that and you cross that with this thing called Delta 9, which is basically like legal THC, right? Kind of like gets you high because it's derived from hemp. Well, that's been growing since 2020, and that's kind of like been explosive. So it's kind of the D9 took the place of like what people were looking for from CBD, because it's like, oh, I can get it legally and I still have this, experience from taking it.
You still kind of have to know how to prompt it though, right? You kind of still have to have some, market information to know, for example, I didn't know anything about Delta 9,
Yes. Yeah. So I think to your point, if someone can package, like it's always SEO agencies that interpret this data for you and they know what to do here. But yeah, if someone can make something like agentic here that like parses some of the data, category trends, and gives you some insight, I think super useful.
Cool. What other tools do you use?
So I use, and then again, this is in the physical product space. I use this tool called Particl. Particl basically allows you to type in a brand, type in any e-commerce brand. So I was looking at today. I was looking at Vital Proteins. Allows you to type in an e-commerce brand. This data isn't public typically because these aren't public companies. And it allows you to see not just their sales over time. So this is like Vital Proteins sales just from their e-commerce website over the past 4 weeks, but it shows you the categories of which they have products in and what their best-selling products are. So a couple of ways that I like to use this is I like to see, number one, what are the numbers that competitors are doing in my space? But then even more importantly, what are their best selling SKUs? So oftentimes people will think, hey, if I'm launching a brand, I need to have I'm going to grow by expanding the set of SKUs or flavors or options that I have. And then you come in and you look at some of the sales data and it's like, hey, 90% of this company's revenue comes from like these top 4 SKUs, and they actually come from these 2 flavors. So if I'm a product in this category making flavored supplements, for example, let me not go make a, whatever like crazy concoction flavor. Because let me look at like a few of the biggest players here. And okay, if I look at 4 of them and they're all selling chocolate and vanilla, it's like, all right, I should probably just make a chocolate and vanilla one. So kind of enables you to like de-risk some of the product decisions that you make. But this is a super cool tool because you can be intentional about searching certain brands, but you can also just look at they have their own kind of like trend explorer. Trend explorer and insights here. There's certain like products and categories of products you can take a look at and see how they're kind of trending up and down. So I kind of like to look at both things on Particl as well as Ahrefs and just like get a position of where things are in the market.
I know you're a big TikTok guy. How much do you think about TikTok Shop and looking at how much revenue people are doing on TikTok Shop and stuff like that? I'm guessing Particl doesn't incorporate that.
Particl does not incorporate that, but browsing on TikTok Shop, they show you all the sales figures. Even Amazon shows you some sales figures where it used to be how many they sold in the last month, but now what do they show you? Yeah, 100K bought in the last month. So I like to look in certain categories. Okay, this magnesium is super hot right now. So this brand is selling a ton of this, but let's look over here. This brand is selling 40,000, but then that kind of goes all the way down to supplements selling 50 units a month. So you kind of get a sense of how competitive a space can be. But so I do a similar thing on TikTok Shop in like physical product categories too of, hey, there's a lot of people talking about this one supplement or this product category. It's selling a lot. And again, they make that sales data public. So it's helpful to see.
And can you make the case for why someone listening to this should start a physical product business? One interesting piece of that could be the same tools or similar tools that we're using for coming up with, AI startups, wrappers, that sort of thing. You could use to create physical products, and there's just a lot of competition right now in software. But I'm curious your perspective. Like, what is the case for why someone should go and create a physical product business when it feels like it just feels harder in terms of like supply chain and stuff like that.
It's I think it's like one of the hardest business models to like to act on because there's so many of these pieces that you have to be really good at. And you've probably seen people who are, in the many millions of dollars trying to go from like 7-figure brand to an 8-figure brand where they're like, hey, at this point, it's like not even really about the product and like even the marketing. It's about like having a really good supply chain and being maniacal about the finances of the business, right? So you end up learning a lot more about like your cash conversion cycle and like the margins that you need to operate well, and like inventory forecasting and all of these other things. So let me say this: building a physical product business is very hard, and like by most people probably just shouldn't be done on a whim. But if you can do it in a somewhat low stakes way or low risk way, where you're not like throwing a ton of cash into it or like betting your entire career on it, I think it is a phenomenal way to get really good at marketing. Because like the bleeding edge of marketing is happening in the consumer product world, because it is so fucking hard to get people's attention, to get a single person each time to part with dollars to buy something. It is much easier to go to a company, give them software and say, hey, can you buy this for $500 a seat per month? And it like saves you guys, 30 minutes a month. And they're like, yeah, sure. Like,
So can we talk about that? So now we understand two tools around trends and what to what products we should create. But can you talk about, okay, great, I want to create this magnesium glycinate product.
yeah.
But how do I get people to actually buy it?
Yeah. So if we look at, so here's a kind of, I think this is a good example. Magnesium is becoming very popular in the world of people who care about performance and recovery and productivity. And I think it's probably like, there's probably like a Huberman Lab episode or like a Peter Attia episode on magnesium glycinate. And like now it's this thing, right? So you have all of these brands creating magnesium supplements, like tri-magnesium supplements. Now, just because there is category demand and it is a popular thing does not necessarily make it easy to like go into, and it's actually somewhat easy to create a supplement, but it's very hard to stand out. So the first place that I kind of look is, okay, we'll go on Amazon, we'll type this in like magnesium glycinate, and we'll take a look at these brands. And a lot of these brands, just kind of as I'm scanning here, okay, these look fairly medical. These look kind of generic. Maybe like Nature Made is a brand I recognize from like being at CVS and Walgreens, and it's like distinctive, right? It stands out with its like yellow cap and yellow coloring here. Everything kind of looks like they're all kind of like stock white bottles. They all look a little medical. They look like a little bit like generic and weird and like not terribly appealing. So I look at this and I'm like, okay, there could be an opportunity to stand out here and like do something different. And so then you come across a brand like
I was just gonna say this is the product I have.
yeah. So you look at Moon Juice and it's like, hey, they're probably sourcing their powder from the same place as like 600 of these other brands, but it's like they have this amber jar. They have like, they're building a different kind of like brand around it, but just like visually it's striking and it stands out relative to things here. So there's one place in which you can differentiate, and that's on the look and feel of the brand. And there's this brand, this is like Kourtney Kardashian's brand that I really like from how they've differentiated. So they're a supplement, they make gummy supplements. And what they did is they invested in kind of like this custom bottling. So it's this kind of like hard plastic, feels like glass kind of bottle with these cool ridges. They have these cool custom caps. The whole thing is this like purple. They are very much positioning to women here and making it like much more fun and much more like accessible, right? Take a look at the Lemmy products versus pure encapsulations, which is like, that is straight from like the compounding pharmacist, right? There is no branding on that. So Lemmy is kind of coming in and saying, hey, we're going to differentiate on look and feel and the language that we use, but we are also going to differentiate on the positioning of the brand and the audience that we're going after. We're going after like a Gen Z woman, and it like makes sense, with like Kourtney being behind the brand. Seed is differentiating in the category, both from how they speak to consumers, how they look, that this kind of like audience that they go after. And I think both in, again, physical products as well as software, you have to, especially in the early stages, figure out what niche you're kind of positioning to and how you're speaking to them, and go hyper targeted to them, and then get to a certain scale. And then you start to expand that niche more and more.
The aha moment I had is while you were talking and seeing some of this is there's a lot of really it seems like in products for women, it's getting more and more popular to have just like well designed, well branded products. Um, I don't think that's ubiquitous yet. Like, you know what I mean? So I feel like there's um, maybe there's more opportunity in creating products for not women, which is highly branded, seed style or Lemmy style. Like I think that this branding is really beautiful. Just curious what your thoughts are on that.
So if I kind of recap that, you're saying there's a lot of products that are kind of geared and branded towards women, and there's a
No,
lot.
my point is like, so seed is it's a, well, actually it says it's probiotic for women and men, right?
Yeah, but it's like in all of their influencer marketing, it's like really for women because like women are the buyers of these products. And
I guess my point is, I think that there's probably a lot of opportunity in doing this style branding for older adults,
Mhm.
not young females.
Yes.
And there's probably an opportunity to do it for, well, older adults. Let's just say that's one. That's the one that first came to mind is the older adult. You know, the 65 or older male or female.
Mhm.
You know, just because they're older doesn't mean that they don't want great, beautiful products that make them feel good or excited about it, right? They're just like us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yes. This is a extremely important idea and a problem that like everything that is in the consumer packaged world runs into this kind of like issue, right? Where it's we had this like era of like millennial blanding with consumer products, which is like everything kind of looks the same. You can kind of think of like Harry's or Casper and their design sensibilities trickled into like every product set and category, right? Like our pans, our cookware, like our rugs, our furniture, everything kind of looks the same. And now we have the same thing happening for Gen Z because they're the next generation of buyers. So like let's make everything super bright and vibrant and saturated and look like a brand called I'll just show you like a good example of this, like Starface, right? And all of this is a byproduct of the people who are building these brands tend to be mostly like coastal people between the ages of 22 and 35. So they just make stuff that they and their friends want to buy. But it turns out when everyone's doing that, it gets like extremely crowded and hard to compete or stand out. So I always say, like, hey, when you're thinking about a category or building a brand in the space, yeah, sure, maybe your like friends need the product, but like, I don't know, let's look at Surface. Do older men and older women have pimples? Do they like, could they like benefit from these patches? Okay, is there a way to just like take this concept and apply it to a totally different demographic that is not really targeted with the current product category? And especially when you go older, like they have more disposable income, they like, consume information from these different channels that are not super saturated with advertising dollars and brands and products and influencer seeding. So it can kind of make your life a little bit easier finding these opportunities elsewhere.
Okay, so say I'm a listener to I'm listening to this and I'm like, you know what, I want to create this Starface for older adults, and you've got like a good vision in your head for the positioning, the marketing, and the actual physical product unboxing and stuff like that. Is the only way to actually go and create the website, create the Shopify, create the product, going to an agency to do it? Is there like a bootstrap way to 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 start like sketching out your idea and putting something out there before like investing $500,000 or whatever in an agency?
Yes, 100%. And I think there's two things. I think like if you look at a brand like Mighty Patch, for example, that's pretty like straightforward. There isn't this like incredibly fancy design with it. It's like nicely done, seems like kind of clinical, seems effective, but it's really just like communicating the information. You could probably figure out how to make that in Canva, right? Whereas Starface, like, okay, probably like bring in a graphic designer to like make this whole like brand and world feel good. Um, there are categories where design matters more than less. So a good example of this is in the spirits business, right? In like wine, alcohol, beer, you can't really say, "Hey, I want to make a new wine brand that like tries to position to this audience, and I'm gonna like really like bootstrap the design and like try to get some traction for it," because that's one of these categories where like you're building a kind of lifestyle brand, and the most important cues for the success of those brands comes down to intentional design choices that's reflected on the packaging as well as the overarching brand. So there are some categories where it's just kind of like a non-starter. You either have to be like a very well-equipped designer or be able to tap into design talent or an agency to like find success there. But in these other categories that are maybe a little bit more problem solution oriented, think like the Starface or Mighty Patch or any of these brands, um, um, there is a way to kind of like get it done more on a budget, kind of independently. You can hire independent freelance designers. You can look at things like Fiverr and Upwork and like look through their catalogs of work and hire these people and be like, hey, I just need like some simple packaging design done. And like, hey, I need a simple landing page set up for this. And you know what, maybe you spend $500 on that or $1,000 on that. And then you say, okay, well, I'm going to now go run Facebook ads and see if I can drive some leads for this and like see if I can gauge some demand here. So there are ways to do it. I think you just have to be kind of like resourceful around pulling together the right people so it looks halfway decent and credible.
Yeah, I wonder if some of the AI tools like V0, Manus could help with some of the design.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know, but I will say that there's probably a $100 million startup idea in the I want to create V0 for CPG. Like that in itself, I think is a huge opportunity for someone to run with as a startup idea.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you good. So number one, yes, I agree with that. Number two, I was talking to a guy who's building he's building a whey protein, like a protein brand that is geared more towards like a South Asian audience from like a flavor profile standpoint. He has a pretty good audience on Instagram. And so he was talking to me about his like branding and packaging, and he was showing me some revisions, and he was like, "Hey, what do you think about this? What would you change?" And he showed me 3 options, and they looked like pretty good. Like if I saw that on a shelf, I'd be like, "Yeah, that's like nice. I would buy that." And he was saying he used like a blend of Mid-Journey and something else to generate the V1 of it, and then hired a designer on Fiverr and was basically like, I want you to recreate this kind of thing in a vector and then like change a couple of the elements. And he spent $250 with the designer doing that. So you can kind of like piece these things together. And yeah, there will be, you can always find people to work with you on that stuff.
The cool thing about that is it allows you to really clarify your vision. So I think the mistake a lot of people make is they go straight to an agency without really understanding what it is they want to build. So sometimes with just doing the hard work around like, okay, what does a mood board look like? And, you know, how should the positioning look like? What should the copy look like? You know, what is my strong point of view as a first version? Getting that out is super helpful.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, so I'll kind of share something. So I kind of mentioned wine because we recently worked on a wine brand project from the agency, and something about developing a point of view. So I always tell, if you're building, whether you're building software or you're building consumer products, you have to be like a relentless researcher of the category and the competition. So, from the agency side for this non-alcoholic wine brand, they came to us and they said, "Hey, we're building a non-alcoholic wine brand. We think this is our position, but like, what do you think?" And so before we ever touch design, we say, "Hey, well, we don't know anything about the NA wine category, so we're going to like read everything that we can. Then we're going to look at every brand in this space, right? So we'll kind of canvas all of these brands, and we'll say, okay, here's this brand, here's like this brand. This one looks a little bit more like elegant and sophisticated, whereas this one looks a little bit more like a daily casual drink." let's take a look at their website. Okay, like very minimalist, very clean here. This leans into like luxe. It feels like far more feminine in their like visuals and their language. This one is this like German brand. I don't know. It's not communicating a whole lot to me. And we'll kind of like go kind of brand by brand and do our like, what is our takeaway? What's our one sentence takeaway from this brand and what it's communicating and who they're speaking to? We'll go into things like you'll go into stores and you'll talk to the store owner and be like, hey, what's selling here? What's not selling? What are people looking for? What are they interested in? And this is such a you get an insane amount of insight doing this where you become so much more confident in the direction that you want to take your brand, and it's free to do. It's free to do. It's free to like go into stores or like go to like just doing research. And so this is like how I do it from the physical product standpoint, but if I were to do this from the software standpoint, okay, if I want to build like a better CRM for vets, right? Or better CRMs for like dentists. Okay, well, like let me look at the software that exists out there today. And let me look at what the reviews are on that software. And let me look at the 1-star and 2-star reviews. And what are people complaining about there? Okay, let me contact 3 dentist office in my neighborhood. Or like, let me go into them and like talk to the staff about them. And it's like these things that seem kind of hard to do, but you can just go in, and if people are like more often than not willing to talk to you and like give you some perspective, and it allows you to just like develop a much more robust point of view than just saying, hey, I'm going to do this and I'm just going to like hypothesize everything that I should build. Meaning it's like I'm just going off hunches that this is the right direction.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
Don't want to do that.
You don't want to do that. Can I show you something real quick?
Please.
So let me share my screen. I thought it would be fun to prompt Manus. Can you design a CPG product? I'm looking for boxing in the actual product. The idea is a Starface competitor, pimple patch, but for older adults.
Amazing.
And I wanted to see what it would come up with. And so it's researching competitors in the pimple patch market. So it's kind of doing a little bit of like what that Figma was, I would hope. It's starting that research. You can see here, we're watching it live, just going through the Starface website. Oh, you can see here on the right-hand side.
Incredible.
Research Starface. Incredible, right? Research Starface product details, analyze competitors in the pimple patch market, research skincare needs for specific to older adults. Like insane, right?
Insane. Holy shit.
Have you played with this at all?
So I have not played with Manus, but I probably run like 3 or 4 deep research queries a day.
Okay.
So I spend a lot of time with that, but this seems amazing.
Yeah, look at this. It's going through Credence Research, which I never heard of, but it's some sort of research company. Here are the best ones. We tried 17 pimple patches. Battle of the pimple patches. So I think that a lot of people could, your unfair advantage might just be using something like Manus. As well.
100%. I was having this conversation with someone yesterday. Like, it boggles my mind how few people are using. Like, we're in this bubble on Twitter where everyone's like talking about like the latest bleeding edge stuff in AI, but 99% of people like they open up ChatGPT and it's like, oh, flights from New York City to San Francisco, and it's like, no. There's like so much more that you can get from this, and so yes, this is like an unfair advantage. I mean, maybe a year or 2 from now, everyone's going to be doing this kind of like de facto before building things, but right now, there is no excuse to go into a space and be like, oh man, I was like ill-equipped, like I don't have enough, like I didn't do enough research on the category, because it can all just be done for you right now.
Look at this. How to care for your skin in your 60s and 70s.
So good.
So good. I'm addicted to it.
How long do you think this will take? Like 30 minutes?
I think it'll take 10. No, not even. Wow. I think it'll take 12 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah. So we'll have a full-on prototype in 12 minutes.
Yeah. And you know what's so crazy is that like they're probably putting together a report that Nielsen would have charged like 20 grand for.
Yeah. For sure. So that's it's a crazy time. All right, Ashwin, this has been cool. What do you want to leave our audience with?
I think no matter what you're building, whether software or physical products, you have to start by working backwards from distribution and thinking about the channels that you're going to acquire customers and the channels that you're going to win in, and then build the product. And it's not vice versa. And it's like there's this adage that you probably known and felt personally, which is like first time founders focus on product, second time founders focus on distribution. And I don't think there's anything more true. Like you see a lot of like subpar products in both the software world and the physical product world that are just like worse products, but they crush it because of like incredible like distribution and operational excellence.
I like it. I learned about you, by the way, through your TikTok account. You just kept popping on my feed, and you were
Crazy.
breaking down brands like Starface. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You were breaking down these brands and just kind of auditing them and just learning about your taste. You're one of those people that I followed you. I liked you so much that I then followed you on Instagram because I was like, I need more of this guy in my life.
Wow, thank you. I
Um,
love it.
we're gonna include in the show notes links to your socials so that people could follow you. Even if you're not building a CPG product, I think that it's going to help just inspire people to create better software products too. And yeah, I just want to thank you for coming on and giving. I want to have you back on, so I want people to like this episode. I want
Yeah.
to just let us know if you like this sort of thing because I would love to have you back on for round two
Yeah,
and
let us
yeah.
know in the comments what types of things we could go deeper on because I think we covered a lot of things here where we could just probably spend a whole episode. We could probably
Yeah,
take that Manus thing and like turn that into a full exercise.
it's true.
Building like a new software business on a call. Let's see if we can piece together like AI tools to like build the thing, build the landing page, test demand. I don't know. Anyway,
Let us
let us know
know.
in the comments. But thank you for having me on, Greg.
All right, my man. I'll catch you later.
See ya.
See ya.